Hey everybody, this is Charlie Dobbins, and I want to welcome you to this webinar. I have a very good friend of mine here, Bob Damigella, and as you know, the topic of this particular webinar has to do with how hard it is, the problems that especially new multifamily investors, but any multifamily investor has in raising money, raising the private money and getting the deal closed using other people's money. And believe me, as a coach, a mentor, a consultant, an attorney, I've dealt with it myself for my own deals, and I deal with it on a regular basis with my students and clients. And so what we're going to talk about here today is a game changer, a new concept that is absolutely out of this world. And, for those of you that know me, I am the multifamily attorney, and I am the founder of the Multifamily Investing Academy. And I have been working with new investors for years now. And I've developed a coaching program called the Owner Forum. And my Owner Forum program, the whole concept behind it is removing the roadblocks. And I have come up with solutions for new investors to remove all the roadblocks. Proof of funds letter, taken care of. Earnest money, not a problem. A key principal to qualify for your mortgage, got you covered. But for years, the issue that we had was when it came to raising the private money. My students would get the deals under contract, and then they had to go out there and raise the money. And it was challenging for some investors. That's a really tough thing to do. Then Bob and I got talking, and what we came up with is the game changer. And what we're calling it right now is the Owner Forum Equity Assist Program. So let me introduce my buddy Bob. And Bob, why don't you give everybody a little bit about your background and who you are, and then let's get started.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Charlie. I appreciate the kind introduction. And just a little bit of my background. Well, as you know, I'm a vice president with Gertica and Company, which is the largest privately owned debt and equity commercial real estate finance firm in New England. My background is been around the business for a long time, 25 years plus in commercial real estate and finance. I cut my teeth in the industry at Lehman Brothers, where for those first 10 years, nearly 10 years, I worked in both the equity markets and real estate. One of the premier deals that we did was I worked on the Rockefeller Center Properties deal, where we raised $750 million in equity. I was part of that equity raise team. It was a syndicate with Lehman, Goldman, and many of the firms. And it was a part of a very large capital stack of $3 billion. That's how I cut my teeth. And I've grown in the industry since then to where now I'm working as a vice president with Gertica and Company here locally.
All right. Now, Rockefeller Center, I don't think I've ever heard of that one. How many units was that, Bob?
Yeah.
Show off.
That's a big
kind of a doozy, as we call it in the business.
Uh-huh.
All right. So I know that, for those people that don't know how you and I have interacted before, you have worked with many of my students. You brought the debt to the equation. For those of you that are still new in the concepts, the debt is the mortgage. Bob provides the mortgage financing for some of these deals. But the thing that you do that is unique, and this is what is kind of happening in the industry, is guys like you are also coming up with creative equity solutions as well.
That's absolutely true. And, the equity markets, having been exposed to them for so many years, have so many different flavors and ways to attack it and to raise equity. But we have our own method here, which has been successful. And look, it certainly doesn't work for everybody, and every deal doesn't qualify. However, for those deals that we can work with, we have the ability to get out there and raise equity for those deals and help those deals get closed and done.
Now, just to let people know that when we're talking about deals that make it, deals that get funded, and deals that get done, those are good deals. Those are deals that investors should be in, that my students should be in. You kind of do a separate vetting process and clean out the bad stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's no doubt that we're going to re-underwrite any deal that comes our way. So I'm certainly familiar with what you bring to the table with your CFA software and how that works and interacts. I know the software well, but we're going to take those responses and those results, and we're going to rerun those numbers, and we're going to look at them on what the street is going to look at. Keep in mind, investors are no different that invest in equity deals. They're still looking for returns, low risk, and team, background to invest in good deals.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely something we're going to do is re-underwrite for those deals to find out which qualify.
Right. And it's so interesting, Bob, when you and I have talked in the past. When I send you a deal from one of my students, this is a good deal, Bob's going to fund this deal. And then I send you some others that still need a little bit of, coaxing, a little bit of renegotiation, and you pick up on it right away. So you and I are exactly on the same page with this stuff.
We are on the same page, for sure. Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
So, in the past, and I'll use some of my examples, and I'm sure you have some as well. I've had students that have got the deals under contract. They've gone through the due diligence process. And then once they pull the trigger and say, okay, I'm in, they got to get out there to the market and start finding the money. And I'm telling you, when I started with the owner forum, I said, my job is not to raise you money. Right. My job is to help you be successful. And a couple of times, some of my students said, hey, is there anything you can do? And so what I did is I said, hey, listen, I got a huge database of names. I'll send your package out to my list and see if you can raise any money that way. And several of my students were successful in getting money into their deal that put them over the hump. They got the deal closed because I was able to step in and help them. But that was never my intent. That was never the intent of my program. So, and on your side, you've seen it too with some of the people I brought to you.
Yeah, no, we've definitely seen that. I think that you would find that, when Gertica as a firm goes out to the street with a deal, we're extremely well respected. So that if we're able to, if your students' deals, qualify, re-underwritten, make sense, we're really going to the street with a punch.
Yeah.
And often, we work only on an exclusive basis, which may initially sound kind of scary, but at the end of the day, is we're really not taking on deals that we don't think that we can.
Right.
We don't think that we can accomplish and close. So.
And I got to tell you that's a shot in the arm for the investor. Like, hey, Gertica's on my side for this one. We're going to work towards getting this closed. Man, you don't have a better partner than that. Any new investor, when you put all of those components together, you're in the business. You're in the business. Your deal's going to get done. That's fantastic.
Well, to put some quantitative numbers on that, in the last half a dozen years or so, we funded on a debt side $1.5 billion in multifamily properties alone. Yeah. And that's not our own balance sheet. That's brought in the various funding sources to do that, and it equates to over $10 billion. We do over $1 billion a year in debt financing, and then that doesn't even mention the equity that we do. Yeah.
Now, okay. So what happened was, and just so everybody understands how this equity assist program came to be. One of my students, that Bob is actually working on the deck for, she came to me like the previous student and said, hey, is there anything you can do to help me? And I thought, okay, well, I can do this again. I can get out there and do a blast. But using the power of the internet, I created an autoresponder and I set it up so they put their information in there, and then once we pitched her deal, and then they fill out the autoresponder to get more information, and they got their name, their address, and their email and phone number. And once they hit enter, they received the package from my student, and then my system sent my student an email. And what happened is they received that email, and she received the email. She calls me up the next day. She says, what did you do? I said, why? What happened? She goes, I got 99 people call me, sent me an email saying they want more information. I said, great, it worked, perfect. That's exactly. Now get on the horn and start calling those people and dialing for dollars. And okay, now many new investors who are watching this webinar right now might think to themselves, oh my gosh, I can't call people asking them for people I've never met before. I said, well, that's part of this game. But if that's what's going to cause a problem for you, we think we found a solution. And this is where Bob contacted me. I mentioned to Bob just in passing what I had done for this other student, and Bob's wheels started spinning. And you came up with this idea, and you called me up and you said, hey, what do you think about doing this? I could not. I thought, Bob, you nailed it. You solved all the problems with that one thing. So why don't you, as the father of the Equity Assist program, why don't you explain to everybody exactly how it worked?
Sure, I'd be happy to do so, and I think it would be quite enlightening for everybody. The only disadvantage I have is, Charlie, is that I'm not able to show anyone sort of our equity book.
Yeah.
You're familiar with that, and
Yeah.
basically is an executive summary of a deal with a summary of the deal terms and the equity needs and the debt needs of the whole transaction.
Okay,
And
let me stop you right there, just so we can talk terminology. You call it an equity book. The software that you mentioned earlier, the cash flow analyzer, actually does a similar package. If you looked at Bob's equity book, it's pretty slick. It really looks good. If you get assigned by these guys, your property is going to go in that equity book, and you're going to look like $1 million.
exactly,
Yeah. So you have, my students have that capability now.
they do.
With you guys, it'll bring it up a notch.
Well, I think that, just to drill down on that for a minute, and then we'll go on to your point. CFA is great product. I've used it. It puts a great book together. However, it wouldn't necessarily be one of our assignments that we work on. If we take the assignment, we're now taking the assignment to be responsible to get the equity and the debt raised for the transaction. And that's why it ends up on our letterhead with our $10 billion of past history backing that opportunity.
Right.
So that's where we are. So so in terms of your question was, how actually is this going to work?
Yeah. So why don't you kind of give everybody the actual practical, like when I told you what I did,
right?
What went through your mind?
What went through my mind was that you have a stable of investors that are interested in investing in real estate deals,
right?
And yet you don't have anyone whose profession
is to get out there and raise the money.
Get out there and talk to them about a deal that's been underwritten and got the stamp of approval, let's say, with a firm behind it, to get out there and actually make those calls and get that capital raised.
Right.
So we're actually in a situation where, in some ways, we'll be sharing clients. So your clients can be my clients. My clients can be your clients.
Right.
And we'll work at helping them to be successful. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, when you heard that I had that database of names and it was growing, and essentially, Bob, I got 100 people on her deal saying, "Hey, I've got money and I want to invest it in you." I mean, what better prospect can you have to raise money? But the problem is that this client of mine, that's not her expertise. That's not what she does. She doesn't feel comfortable doing it. She doesn't know exactly what to say. And when you heard that I had that database and I had 100 people, you being in the business, you knew exactly what needed to be done.
Exactly what needs to be done. What happens with that client is we need to take, assuming it fits through all of our hoops and it meets all of our requirements, take that assignment. We're going to tee up the debt, but at the same time, we're going to get to work calling these prospects, these people who are interested in investing, and going through the deal with them, and then obviously getting them to invest, hopefully, in this transaction.
Right. So essentially, what we're doing is you're going to get. I'm going to be building up my database. I'm going to be chumming the waters and building up that list, and these names are going to be going to Bob. And other people's names are going to be going. Bob is going to be the repository for that private money equity people, so that when you get a deal, when your deal passes muster with me, and then we send it off to Bob, say, "Bob, we got a great one," and Bob looks at it and says, "Yes, this is a fantastic deal. Let's bring this one to the marketplace."
Right.
Bob's already got the equity people lined up.
Exactly.
All set.
Yep.
Yeah, and he just goes out because Bob makes his money on the debt and the equity side. Yep. So if he places the debt, the only way he's going to place the debt is if he has the equity component. He puts the two sides together, and the deal gets funded, and you become a multifamily investor. So it is taking, as I said to you before the call, I said I can handle the transaction part better than anyone. I know how to close a multifamily deal. I know how to analyze it. I know how to take it all the way to owning and operating it. But it was the equity component of the process that I didn't want to touch. I mean, past experience with the SEC. Those guys are lunatics. I don't want to get involved with them ever again. And so I stayed clear. But this particular solution is a great one for my investors.
To summarize, really what ends up happening is a guy like me ends up fulfilling a capital markets role for your students' team.
Right. So take your example of the Rockefeller Center. You're doing that for my students.
Right. Yep.
You're out there doing the syndication for my students.
Yep. Exactly.
This is a beautiful marriage.
Very exciting. I do.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, let's talk about. I've got some people have already typed in some questions here. So, and for those of you on the webinar, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the box. If we can get to them while we're on the call, we will. If we don't, you'll probably get a response back via email. So use that. But I've already got some questions here that I'm going to go over. But before we do, let me just say, and Bob and I will walk you through this. First question is, who's eligible for the Equity Assist program? And on my end, it's you have to be in the owner forum. And if you don't know what the owner forum is or you're new to it, you can check the box down the bottom. I'll tell a little bit more about it before we hang up the call. But the owner forum is my coaching, consulting, mentoring program that is like no other in the industry. I think, Bob, you've been a member of it for a while now.
Yep.
What do you think?
I think it's been fantastic. Just your method alone, I come across deals just being in the business, but your methods just for sourcing and finding deals is spectacular. I find stuff that I don't think I would find even in the business.
Yeah. And but becoming a member of the owner forum, it's such a great group of people, and I mean we are our own best cheerleaders.
Very collegial. It's very collegial. Yeah,
it is fantastic. I love the group. I love the owner forum. But I'll explain more about it later. And there'll be more. You can click for more information. So the first thing to get this access to this program, you got to be a member of the owner forum. But more importantly, Bob, the next step comes up to you. You got to do the debt. Or who cares? You don't want to do this deal. This is Bob's not in this just to see you buy property. Bob's in it to make money himself, and his company does a debt equity component, and so therefore he's the debt guy. So if you are coming to the owner forum and you've got your own debt brother-in-law who sells commercial paper, go for it. Let him place it for you, but you're not going to get the Equity Assist program. This is a joint venture between Bob and myself, and putting it together and making sure you get funded. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to drill down on that and just to say, I'm not just a guy that, hey, can you raise me some equity capital?
Yeah,
we're going to raise equity. No.
No.
Charlie's helped you get a deal under your belt. You got the LOI done, you've got the transaction done, you're ready to go, and you've got all your documents in place, and you've got a good, solid, quality deal that we can sink our teeth into and go to the street with and go to the market with.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing, Bob, and this is something that oh my gosh, I see so much of this happening with new investors, and you know exactly where I'm going with this. You get that new investor like, oh, I found this guy on LinkedIn, and he said he's going to raise all the private money for me. I just have to send him a check for $10,000.
Yeah.
And then you go like, oh, kill me now. I tell you what, why don't you just give me the $10,000? I'm going to do as much for you as he's going to do.
Yeah.
And that is not what this is about. That is not what this is about.
We work for your clients, your students.
Yeah.
We work for them solely on a success basis.
Yeah. Exactly.
Know anything. Again, we're not going to take an assignment unless we think we can get it done, and it's all on a success basis.
Right.
So we'll get paid for the debt and the equity raise, but at the end of the day, if we're not successful, we won't get paid, and we're very rarely not successful.
Right. And the thing, hold on, let me just grab my powder here. The thing that I want to stress here is you said on a success basis. Now, people don't seem to understand exactly what that means. And they need to understand that that is incredibly important, in that you never anyone any money, especially a mortgage broker or someone looking to raise you money up front. These people should only earn their money on a success basis. If they're there at the closing table with you, then they get paid. Otherwise, don't even bother.
Exactly right.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
what we're in business to help investors succeed, and we do it only on a success basis, and
Right.
that's been that way for decades with us.
Yeah, and that's what we do too. Now, the other thing too is, and this is key, and this shouldn't even have to be said, but I'm going to say it. The deal must work. This program is not going to make a bad deal good. Okay?
Right.
It's just not. And so, if anything, this program is going to protect you from doing bad deals. I mean, as I always say, if you do your first deal wrong, you'll never do a second deal. Well, let me tell you, I have helped students stay out of bad deals for years. And if you think that you send us a property and you think it's the best thing since sliced bread, and I look at it, it's like, hey, Bob, I'm not too sure about this one. And Bob takes a look at it in his underwriting department and he says, no go. Don't get mad at us for saying your property's not going to fly. We're doing you a favor. You're overpaying for the property. You're giving that seller's grandchildren your kids' money. Don't do it. And that's what we need to protect you from.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was going to finish.
No, I was just going to say, of course, when you're raising debt or equity, I mean, debt, is one thing. It's your standard rates, whether you're using a bank or pension fund or life insurance company, whatever the debt source is. But on the equity component, which is a large part of this conversation, is that equity component really needs to be acceptable to the street.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. I mean, if you think you're going to go to the street and raise equity, at 2.5% or 3.5% money, and you've never done a deal before, and it's some tertiary market that's a building falling apart, it's not going to happen.
You sound like one of my students this morning. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing it? Okay. So
quality deals.
We talked about who's eligible and who's going to be in the who can start using this equity assist. And let me ask you, Bob, what does Gertica charge for this, or what do you see? Because remember, a lot of my investors, one of the things they do is they set it up so that they can do the acquisition fee, and that's part of their money raise. And so, how do you get paid? Do you keep a portion of that, or what?
No, all we do, we're pretty simple. Just as a rule of thumb, we raise debt for your project, it's going to be 1%.
Okay, 1%.
If it's more difficult, we just decide.
Oh, wait, that's on the debt side. That's strictly on the debt side.
Right. Now, on the equity side,
that's standard. Just so everyone knows, that's standard. That's just
standard.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And on the equity side, it's typically a rule of thumb is 3%.
Okay, so you are going to raise, so you're keeping 3% of the acquisition price or of the
of the equity raised. So if we raise $1 million, we'll keep 3% of it, and you'll get the net. The investment, the deal will get the net.
Okay, and this type of deal structuring arrangement is something that you will work on with the student, and the three of us will get on.
Everything will be baked into the transaction. Yeah. For example, just using debt as an example, our 1% fee is part of the closing statement. We get paid at the closing table.
Yeah. Okay.
We're not hoping to get a check. Same thing with the equity. Yeah. It all has to be worked out on that basis.
Okay. Now, another question is what somebody had typed in is, how much does Multifamily Investing Academy make? And the answer is 0.
Right.
Okay.
We're providing this as a service.
Right. I make the money on the monthly fee from the owner forum. And I do not, and I will never will, take a portion of the deal in the form of equity or a success fee, because I cannot do anything that would subject me to an issue of I'm not being impartial or I'm not being objective.
Yeah.
I have to keep a total arm's length transaction. If you knew that I was telling you, hey, you should do this deal so that I could get paid, I can't work that way.
No, that's a conflict, and you can't work that way.
Conflict of interest. And the thing is, I can't say, like, look you in the eye and say, like, oh, geez, you never should have done that deal, but hey, thanks for the acquisition fee I made that day. It just, I make my money on my monthly fee, and I earn it every single month. So that's key. Now,
and on that acquisition fee, just to let you know, often I'll get documents from, or I'll get the CFA from some of your students, and they often don't even have their acquisition fee baked in.
Yeah.
And we end up going and putting it in there and saying, what do you want? You want 2%, 3%? And then that, in terms of the debt stack, gets included in, and that's how they can get paid.
Right.
They miss that.
Well, no, sometimes, like early on, by the time it gets to you, they should start baking that in. But some of my students, what we do is we just go with the bare bones and say, does this deal work? Can this deal even come close to penciling out? And if it does, then we can start loading in all the, like.
Right. Okay.
So now, what liability does Gertica take for the legal? Like, who's responsible for the the PPM and the subscription agreement and doing all the legal work for the securities?
That's all the responsibility, 100%, 1,000% the responsibility of the sponsor.
Exactly. Okay. So let me stress this here. It's your deal. Right. You are responsible. Bob is like not even a partner. He's an employee of yours raising the money. You don't put the burden of all of that responsibility on your employee. That is the responsibility of the sponsor. That's the responsibility of the guy getting paid the 3% acquisition fee. That's the responsibility of the guy, who's keeping a portion of the ownership because he sponsored the deal. This is always your responsibility. It's not Gertica's responsibility. You've got to do it. Now, of course, we're going to assist you and set you up with a good securities attorney. But until that time, I mean, don't worry about the securities documents until you get the deal with Bob. But when that time comes, it's going to be your responsibility.
Yeah, and I think you have a great point, though, Charlie. If I might just touch on this for a minute, you to a degree, you got to be prepared. You got to be thinking ahead. No different than you got to be thinking about raising money ahead of a deal.
Yeah.
You can't say, okay, great, I got an LOI done. We got to close in 60 days, and there's no documentation done. There's nothing to send to investors. There's no way to get a deal, money in because you don't have, and your sponsors and investors definitely want to have a situation where they have their documents in place for their own protection.
Right.
That's what's going to protect them. So if a deal ever goes sideways, which they can, they've got protections there.
As I always say, and people ask me this all the time, I ask it, well, what documents you put together? What you have even basically an operating agreement for the LLC. Oh no, I'm just doing this deal with my brother. It's my brother. I said, listen, the problem is never going to be with your brother. The problem is going to be with your brother's widow's second husband.
True.
That's what the problem's going to be. And they're going to say, hey, show us the documents.
Right.
We never had one. Give me my money back. You
never need documents till you need documents.
Exactly. Yeah.
Until you need them. Other than that, they gather dust. That's
what my property law professor used to always say. He said, it's never a problem till it's a problem.
That's right.
And the guy said it all the time. I put it on an exam. I got an A. All right. Now, what documents will Gertica put together, and what documents are the sponsors responsible for? So we kind of talked about what you're going to do from the sponsor standpoint. Why don't you give people an idea of what happens when you guys accept the assignment?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's happened before accepting the assignment. Yep. We've gotten a P&L, we've gotten a trailing 12. We've looked at the CFA, we've underwritten the deal, and it says, hey, we believe we've got lenders that will fund this deal. And on top of that, we're looking, perhaps at the track record. And if we structure the equity in a certain way that pays a certain pref rate and a return, then we could conceivably, especially with some of your contacts, raise the equity piece for this deal. So then we will documentation-wise, we'll get an engagement. A letter will go out to the sponsor saying, I'm engaging on an exclusive basis your firm to go out and raise the debt and equity for us. Great. So now we've got an assignment, and it's all hands on deck. We've got analysts. We're running the numbers. We're reaching out to our 50 to 100 banks or more. We're reaching out to our life insurance companies that many of you may not know fund real estate deals to the tune of the billions of dollars a year. Billions. Yeah. We're reaching out to whoever and taking care of our clients. In terms of documentation, we create the book, has a certain amount of disclaimers, but really where all of the disclaimer work goes that's going to protect the sponsor is going to be through their own documents, such as private placement memorandum, subscription documents, and those sort of things. And that's where you're going to make sure your house is in order. And frankly, if you don't have it, I can't go to the street. So it's something that has to be thought about as part of creating the business, like you say.
Yeah.
It's part of a business.
Yeah.
That's being a real business.
Yeah.
To have appropriate documents in place to fulfill your deals.
That's interesting because part of the owner forum is the Multifamily Mba Training, which is a 12-week program, a 12-week 6-module program, which teaches the students how to create a multifamily business. Because that's what you're doing. You're not just buying real estate. You're looking to get into this business.
Right.
I teach the how to own 1,000 apartments in 5 years. You don't do that by doing one transaction. No. You do that by owning and building a good, solid business. And that's one of the things that we teach at MFIA. Now, one of the things is, okay, this is a key. Somebody wrote this great question. I appreciate this question. It has to do, Bob, with going back to those 99 people. Let's talk about accredited investors. How do you deal with accredited investors? What responsibility, who's doing what in that transaction there? Okay,
that's a great question. And I think having an understanding of that is important. Again, much of this really bears down to the sponsor. But being an accredited investor, first and foremost, tells you that if you've got a pool of accredited investors, you have people with money.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're not accredited, and that's certain requirements, which are, I don't have them at my fingertips, $1 million net worth, certain amount of income every year. That's easy to find in a heartbeat. What the current numbers are, they change from time to time. But having a pool or a stable of those guys is very valuable to your students. And I think you have those in your database, and that's something that we're going to want to find out for sure,
right,
on our end, so that we're talking to accredited investors. Okay.
Okay. Go on. All
right, so stop me if you like, but now on the sponsor side, that's where you really, from a liability standpoint, as you know, they want to have accredited investors in their deals. Now, I believe in any private placement, you can have up to 35 non-accredited investors.
Sophisticated investors, right.
Right, non-sophisticated.
Right.
But, if you have Mrs. Blue Hair in your deal, who puts her last, $25,000 in, and, all of a sudden you have a problem, and they now say, well, this lady was, living on food stamps, but gave you her last 25 grand. You really don't want to be on the other side of that conversation.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So you're going to get in there. You're going to be on the phone with these people. You're going to be saying, "Hey, I've got the great opportunity for you," and then you're going to be probably the first person that asks the question, "Are you accredited?"
Yeah, unless we pick that up in any mailings that we do or your database, and we already know they are. Yep. We can talk about that logistically.
Yep, excellent, great point. And so you're going to come back and say, okay, these are all sophisticated, and these are the accredited investors, but the decision for which type of securities offering that is being made on this property is the responsibility of the sponsor, of the student, of the investor. If they say we're going to accept sophisticated investors in this deal because we're doing a Reg D offering, then you're okay. You can deal with that.
The documents are going to say you're going to have a place where someone signs off, and the sponsor, right, PPM and other documents where they sign off that I'm an accredited investor,
right,
and that I have the financial wherewithal to deal with this. Again, they can take up to 35 non-accredited investors if they choose. Yep. Maybe it's a small deal, and that may not be a deal that I work on. But at the end of the day, still having those documents, even for a smaller deal outside of us, maybe something that they want to have in place.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I've done those deals with the sophisticated investors, and when you get a lot of investors in the deal, and it becomes cumbersome to work right on.
Yep.
So yeah, if you can get these things wrapped up with only a few investors, that's even better. And especially if they're accredited, then you get you can don't have to worry about the that 3-letter swear word that we talk about knocking on your door someday. So right. So that's great. Okay. That was the last question. I mean, people are asking, like, what do we do next? What's the next step? First off, if we haven't got to your question, because we're running out of time here, but if we haven't got to your question, just go ahead and type it in, and we will respond back to you and answer it for you. The next step is, if you're not a member of the owner forum, you need to become a member of the owner forum. Now, what's going to happen is there's going to be a link down below where you can click on it, and it'll take you to a sales page, a landing page with more of my videos, and where you can learn more about the owner forum. And then from there, the owner forum is an interview process. It is not open any longer. At one point, we took everybody in. Now it's an interview process. And if you're going to fill out an online form, it's going to come to our office. We're going to review it. We'll contact you. You'll set up an interview, and then we'll talk to you over the phone. Now, if you're not ready for the owner forum, we'll put you in the master class, and the master class will help you learn the multifamily business. And then when you're ready, we'll come back in and we'll see how you're doing, and we'll move you up to the owner forum. But the owner forum is the program that provides $50,000 of earnest money. It provides a proof of funds letter. It provides access to key principles to get you qualified. And you have all full, complete access to me, the multifamily attorney. But now we have the Equity Assist program with Bob, and now all your roadblocks have been overcome. So if you want to find out more, you got to click the link below. Bob and I will be available for questions. And listen, guys, we're here to help. I think Bob's idea, I wish I had thought of it. I told him I thought of it 10 years ago, but I'm just going to give him credit for it today. But I mean, this is a game changer, because I think what it allows you to do as an investor, as a new investor, is to make sure you've got a great set of professional eyes all over your deal, and it's going to make sure that you do good deals. We're not going to do bad deals. And as an investor, that's all you want to do. That's all you can ask for. So this is a game changer, Bob. I tell you, I'm so glad I met you, because it's really cool. This is good stuff. So we've got to make it happen. We're going to make it happen for our students, and we'll make it happen for you. So this will be cool. So
great.
All righty, man. Good talking with you. And I will chat with you later. And any questions, go ahead, click below. Find out about this program and click the link and fill out the form, and let's talk. All right. So this is Charlie Dobbins signing off. Bob Damigella
signing off. Thank you. Okay, guys. Thank you so much, Charlie.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.